Welcome to Shom Achshav on the Daf. We're holding him in Menachos Daf Nun Vov. The Gemara throughout Amud Aleph brings the drushes of which things require Tzafon and which things do not require Tzafon. And the Gemara tells us, based on the limud that we're learning from Seir Nasi, the Gemara brings 4 different things that do not require Tzafon. Seir Nachshoin, the Shoichet doesn't require Tzafon, Oif if it's a bird, and Korban Pesach doesn't require Tzafon. The Meshech in Parshas Vayikra, Perkal Pasuk Yud, he goes on to explain why the idea of Tzafon is mentioned. Even when we mention Tzafon by Oilo, we mention only by Tzoin, only by sheep, and not by Ben Bakar, not by a calf. Meaning the source of Tzafon is more learned from a Tzoin. Why Dafka there? So he brings in the name of the Medrash Vayikra Rabo Beis Yud Aleph that Tzafon represents Akedas Yitzchak. Why? Shetzafon afaroi lezikaron lifnei Hashem tamid. Tzafon is a representation of Yitzchak because the Tzafon is hidden there. So he says, what does it mean? It refers to the Gemara Basra that says the Ruach Tzfoinis Psucha. The north side is open because the idea of Bchira, free will, is that a person has free will. That's what you learn from Tzafon. And the free will that was in the Akedas Yitzchak was the ultimate free will, that Avraham Avinu gave up everything for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This ultimate sacrifice, Avraham Avinu was boicher, chose this thing, almost took away, he says, the bchira from his children, from his descendants. That a yid, it's almost not even a challenge for him to be ner regal kiddush Hashem. So that's the idea, the tzafon that we have in the Korbanos is referencing and reminding us of Akedas Yitzchak. That's why Dafka by Tzoin it says Tzafon, and not by Bakar, because by Bakar, Adirabah, Bakar reminds us of what? Chet HaEgel was a calf. So we don't mention there the Tzafon. We learn Tzafon through Tzoin, but Tzoin is the Shoirish, because that's what we had by Akedas Yitzchak. So then he quotes it from the Gemara in Tzvachim, which is the Gemara by us as well. The Gemara says, why don't you say that Ben Oiv should have north? Why don't you do that a bird also require north? The Gemara says, because a korban needs a kli. It needs a macheles. Meshech and Oiv does not need a kli. So as Rav Kuperman in the Ha'aris there in the Meshech points out, Taisus by us asks, why this question is not brought down in other limudim that we learn Ben Oiv from Tzoin? You learn the Indian, you need to have a kohen. You learn the Kavachim and Gemara and Kedushin from Ben Tzoin. Why don't you say there you need a kli? By Oiv you don't need to have a kli. So says the Meshech, the reason is because here the reason we have Tzafon is Akedas Yitzchak. So it has to be as similar as possible to Akedas Yitzchak. By Akedas Yitzchak there was a kli. Avraham Avinu took the ma'acheres lishchet his benoi. So that's the reason the ben oif is not part of it, because it doesn't have a kli, meaning it's not doime like Akedas Yitzchak. And he continues and says that's the pshat in our Gemara that Seir Nachshoin doesn't require Tzafon. So he says the pshat is what? Nachshoin has a special schus because he jumped into the water in Yam Suf. And he quotes the Tosefta on Meshech Brachos, "Mevnei zochi Yehuda l'Malchus, lefi shekafetz Nachshoin v'shivta yoter chayam kitchu shmoi shel mokim." So he doesn't require Akedas Yitzchak to remind us. That's why he doesn't have to have Tzafon. That's what Meshech says, and this is a little bit tamua because Seir Nachshoin doesn't mean only Seir Nachshoin. It means Seir of every one of the Nisim now require Tzafon. But it could be, it's called Seir Nachshoin, so everybody goes after Nachshoin. Nachshoin doesn't require Tzafon, so no one else requires Tzafon as well. But the Yisei the Meshech is, all Tzafon is to remind us of Akedas Yitzchak. Maybe based on this, we can add another point in the Meshech. The other drush the Gemara tells us over here, that only the animal has to be B'Tzafon, but not the Shoichet. The one who does the Shechita, the Shoichet himself, does not have to be B'Tzafon. Oysa B'Tzafon, v'lo Shoichet tzech liyod omed B'Tzafon. So it happens to be the recording of this shir is on Chof Aleph Adar, the yard site of Elimelech from Lizhensk. We bring a site that the name Elimelech brings the Parshas Naso we mentioned in the past. The name Elimelech explains, what's the idea that Shechita is kosher bizarre? That someone who's not kohen can do Shechita, but any other avodah requires a kohen. So explains the name of the Melech, the reference here is to avodas Hashem. A zar is a reference to someone who's not so close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's a little far away. He's a zar, he's a stranger. A kohen reference to a tzaddik who's close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says in avodas Hashem, avodas Tefillah, once they're not so close, they have to do Shechita first of all. What's Shechita? Shechita is a sur mirah. Take away all the bad thoughts, all the distractions. Try to take away the things that are bothering you. That's the avodah for someone who's doing shechita. That's a stage. He's a zar. He's not there yet. But a kohen, a tzaddik, someone who's been a great mailo. So his avodah is mikabel ve'elech. He's mikabel all the ashpars from above. That's already another level, another stage of tefillah. Another stage of avodah Hashem. Really a musahaskal for every one of us. Sometimes in our avodah, there's some times that what we have to focus on is to take away the distractions. But in a higher level of avodah is not only that we take away the distractions, we're already are connected and excited to do the avodah. Now we know the Yitzchak Avinu is Omud avodah. So Efshar putting the name in Elimelech or the Meshech Chochma, everything that is connected Yitzchak Avinu in the Akedah, we do Tzafon. Whatever it's not, is not. Shechita is not Yitzchak Avinu. Because Shechita is the avodah of someone who's a zar, someone's a little further away. Yitzchak Avinu is the closest one. He's the Omud avodah. So the animal, all Shara avodas, the Kabbalah has to be in the Tzafon. But the Sheikhet, the one who does the Shechita, which he's still a zar, he's still further away, he's not in the Tzafon, he's still in the Dharm. That's maybe a way to connect the Meshech Chochma with the name Elimelech, Schus Yogan Aleinu. Anyone who wants to join the sponsor of Shomachshava Shurim, please email shomachshava@gmail.com.